Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Chaf Bet Amud Aleph. We're starting with the first of the wide lines with a quote from the Mishnah. Zeh haklal kol sheyesh bo musaf v'chulei. So this is the part of the Mishnah which gives you rules about how to figure out how many aliyot are read on any given day. And this particular part, it says that zeh haklal kol sheyesh bo musaf ve'eino yom tov korin arba'a. So if there's musaf, but it's not actually Chag, then there are 4 readings. Now the Gemara has a question about this. Ibayalahu, they asked, Tanit Tzibor Bekama, Tanit Tzibor Bekama. How many aliyot should there be on a Tanit Tzibor? Rosh Chodesh Moed Ika Korban Musaf Arba'a. Aval Hacha Delika Korban Musaf Lo. Maybe, this is sort of the first possibility, Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, which have a Korban Musaf, get 4 aliyot. Aval Hacha, but here, there's no Korban Musaf, so maybe it's not 4, maybe it's 3 for a public fast day. O Dilma, or maybe, Hachanami Ika Mosaf Tfilah. Maybe here also there's an extra prayer, and therefore you should have 4 aliyot. And Rashi tells us Mosaf Tfilah, Paskat Tfilat Anenu Bracha Yetera. So the bracha of Anenu is put in to the Shmona Esrei on public fast days, on a Tanit Tzibor. So maybe that counts as an extra prayer, such that we would say that it fits the rules to have 4 aliyot. Tashma, come in here. So here's a proof text trying to prove. We'll see which way it's trying to prove. But prove one way or the other in this question of whether Tanit Tzibor should have 3 aliyot or should have 4 aliyot. So this is a quote from our Mishnah, and it specifically says that on Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, you should have 4 readers. Habetani Tzibor Gimel. Therefore, it must be that on a public fast day you have 3 readers, right? It's not on the list of times when you read 4, so it must be 3. But the Gemara rejects this. Ema Reisha. I will say the beginning, meaning, let me tell you about the beginning of the Mishnah. B'sheni v'chamishi b'shabbat b'mincha korin shosha. Right? That at the beginning of the Mishnah it says that the times when you have 3 readers are Monday and Thursday in the morning, and Shabbat at mincha. Hatanit tzibor arba'ah. So it must be from there that Tanit Tzibor has 4 readers. In other words, Tanit Tzibor doesn't show up on the list of times when there are 4 readers, so it must be a time when we have 3 readers, but it also doesn't show up on the list of the time when we have 3 readers, so maybe it's 4 readers. Rather, from here we can't learn anything. In other words, this proof gets rejected in the sense that you can't learn anything from it. We can't learn that it's 4 readers, we can't learn that it's 3 readers, we don't know any more than we did before. Tashma, come in here, another proof. De Rav equal Bavel b'Tanit Tzibor. Rav went to Bavel on a public fast day, Kam Kara B'Sifra, and he got up and read from the Torah. Patach Barich, Chatem V'lo Barich. Right before he started reading, when he began, he made a bracha, and when he finished, he did not make a bracha. Nafal Kulei Alma Al Payu. Afterwards, literally, they all fell on their faces, meaning they all started saying Tachnun. For Rav lo nafal al peh, and Rav did not fall on his face, did not start saying Tachnun. This part, specifically about Tachnun, we're not going to talk about right now. The Gemara will pick up with this part later. For now, the Gemara is just going to ignore this part of the story. But the Gemara is going to analyze the rest of the story. Michti Rav b'Yisrael kara. It must be, or since it must be that Rav read in the Israel slot. Right? Rav must have read the 3rd aliyah, because Rav, Rashi tells us, was not a Kohen or a Levi, so he must have been reading the 3rd slot. And given that, why did he finish and not make a bracha? Lav mishum debayla mikrei achrina batre. Shouldn't this be because there was going to be someone reading after him? Right? Mikrei achrina batre, another one was going to read after him. In other words, the Gemara assumes that we're back in the old system. The first reader makes a blessing at the beginning and then reads. The subsequent readers don't make any blessings, and then the final reader makes the final blessing. So the Gemara assumes if he made a blessing before but not after, that must be a sign that someone was going to read after him. Lo, no, it doesn't indicate that at all. Rav bekahane kara. Rav actually read in the Kohen slot. That's what the Gemara says. Taha Rav Huna kari bekahane. Maybe there should be a comma. For Rav Huna, also read in the Kohen slot. Rav Huna, who was also a great rabbi, read in the Kohen slot. So why not Rav? You could be awarded that first aliyah just for greatness alone. Bishlama Rav Huna kari bekahane. It makes sense. It's fine that Rav Huna read in the Kohen slot, or was called up for the Kohen aliyah. Taha filo Rav Ami v'Rav Asi tekahane chashive de'ar Yisrael mekiv kaifule. Because even Rav Ami and Rav Asi, who were actually Kohanim, and who were very important in Eretz Yisrael, chashive de'ar Yisrael, they were the most important people in Israel, mechav kaifule, even they were subservient to him, even they sort of accepted that Rav Huna was the greatest. Kaifule Rav Huna. Ella, Rav, but when it comes to Rav, ha'ika Shmuel. There was Shmuel. Tekahana hava, v'davar ale. But when it comes to Rav, isn't there Shmuel? Shmuel was Rav's equal at least, and he was a Kohen, and he was greater than him. He sort of prevailed over him. Shmuel nami mechaf havakayif Rav. No, don't worry about it. Shmuel also was subservient to Rav. Was willing to say that Rav could have the kavod, and that's why Rav was able to get the Kohen reading. V'Rav hu da'avid le kavod. But isn't it the case that Rav actually gave kavod to Shmuel? Meaning we have stories from other places that Rav gave kavod to Shmuel. Rashi says, "V'Rav hu da'avid lahai da'adabre ale kavod hava avid le." Since Shmuel was sort of greater than him, sort of ruled over him in a way, Rav would actually give kavod to Shmuel. Mishum delaite Rav Shmuel, because at some point Rav actually cursed Shmuel, the lo lukme bane, that he would not have any children. This is told about in Masechet Shabbat, and it seems like Rav kind of felt bad for having cursed him, and so subsequently he gave him kavod, and that's why Rav gave Shmuel kavod. So isn't it the case that Rav gave Shmuel kavod and not the other way around? V'chi avid le b'fanav, shlo b'fanav lo. When this happened, when he did it for him, meaning when Rav gave Shmuel kavod, that was only to his face. Shlo b'fanav lo. Shlo b'fanav lo avid lehachi. When it wasn't in front of his face, he didn't do this for him. Meaning, we could still say that Rav would get the Kohen Aliyah when Shmuel wasn't present. He got that kind of kavod because he was Shmuel's equal, and even though Rav did give him special honor when they were together, he didn't give him honor when Shmuel wasn't actually there. Avidlai. Hachinami mistabra, this also makes sense, meaning it also makes sense to say that Rav got the Kohen slot, right? Hachinami mistabra de Rav bekahane kara, that Rav was getting the Kohen Aliyah. To Isa Kadaitech B'Yisrael kara, because if you were to think that he was reading in the Israel slot, Lefaneha Maitam Barich, then why was he making a bracha beforehand? Right? If he's reading in the Kohen slot, in the Israel slot, and we're talking about before the takana, then he shouldn't have made a blessing beforehand or afterwards if you think it was a fourth aliyah. La'achar takana, because it's after the takana. So that's why he would make a blessing beforehand. Everyone was making a blessing beforehand. But if so, if it was after the takana, then he should also make a blessing afterwards. Shani hechadiyati rav dema'ayla aile. It was different in the place where Rav lived. They had a different tradition. Dema'ayla aile, that one would go up, the people would go out. People would come in, mefik lo nafke, but they wouldn't go out. Rashi clarifies, mefak lo nafke, hilkach lefaneha barich, gzera mishum hanichnasin. they had a different gzera entirely because they didn't have the same problem of nichnasin and yotzin, people coming in and going out, that we've seen in other places. People came late, but they didn't leave early. Mefak lo nafke. So therefore, beforehand, they blessed, meaning you had to make a bracha before the aliyah, gzera mishum hanichnasin, because of those who would come in late. Kizamrinan la'el, as is said earlier. La'achareha lo barich lo chayish liyotzin. But a blessing was not made after each and every aliyah because they were not worried about people leaving early. Which means it's possible that Rav actually had the Kohen aliyah, but we haven't proven anything. We don't know for sure which aliyah he had, and so this proof just doesn't work for us. Again, we're still in a place where we don't know if there are 4 aliyot or 3 aliyot on a Tanit Tzibor. Tashma. So here's another attempted proof. Zeh haklal. Kol sheyesh bo bitul melacha la'am kegon Tanit Tzibor v'tisha b'av korin gimel. So here's the rule. Any day that has bitul melacha, has no work, or a time of no work for the whole nation, like a fast day or Tisha B'Av, then you have 3 readers. Sheyesh bitul melacha, where there is work, and so not having a long davening would mean missing work. So yesh bitul melacha means you would be missing work if you kept people longer in shul, like a Tanit Tzibor and Tisha B'Av, which are both regular work days. So then you only have 3 aliyot. V'she'ein bo bitul melacha la'am kegon roshei chodeshim v'chol shel moed korin arba. But if there is going to be some kind of missed work, if you keep people longer in shul, like Rosh Chodesh, there isn't going to be any missed work for if you keep people in shul, like Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, then you have 4 readers. In other words, the Gemara assumes that people work on a Tanit Tzibor and on Tisha B'Av, but the Gemara assumes that people don't work on Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed. And Rashi here comments specifically about Rosh Chodesh, In bo bitul melacha kol kach, she'ein hanashim osot melacha behen. There's not as much missing of work if you keep people in shul longer, because women specifically don't work on Rosh Chodesh, a tradition that existed for a long time. So it's okay to keep people in shul longer on these days, on Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed, but not on Tisha B'Av and Tanit Tzibor. Shma mina. So that's what you can learn from here. So it seems like we found a good proof that on a Tanit Tzibor you would only have 3. Amar Rav Ashi, v'ha'anan lo tznan hachi. But we not learn this? Because our rule is zeh haklal, or didn't we learn it this way? Zeh haklal kol yom sheyesh bo musaf ve'ino yom tov korin arba'ah. We said that every day that has musaf and is not a yom tov, you have 4 readers. Right? That's what our Mishnah said. This is a quote from our Mishnah. It doesn't exactly match the klal that was given in the previous source. La'atuye mai, to include what? We've seen this question before. The Gemara wants to know, what are we including? What are the words zeh haklal coming to include exactly? Lav la'atuye Tanit Tzibor v'tisha b'av. Isn't it coming to include a Tanit Tzibor and Tisha B'Av, right? Isn't the zeh haklal coming to include unstated cases, and the unstated cases could be Tanit Tzibor and Tisha B'Av, and then we would say that you have 4 readers on those days. Ula Rav Ashi matnitin mani, but according to Rav Ashi, whose opinion is our Mishnah? Lo Tanakama, v'lo Rabbi Yossi. It doesn't go according to the Tanakama, and it doesn't go according to Rabbi Yossi in the Breitah which we're about to see. Titania, chaliyot b'sheni v'chamishi, korin shlosha. If it falls out, I should put a comma here actually. Umaftir echad. If it falls out on Monday or Thursday, you have 3 readers and 1 maftir. So the case that we're talking about is specifically about Tisha B'Av. So if Tisha B'Av falls out on Monday or Thursday, you have 3 readers, and one of those readers reads the Haftarah. B'shlishi u'rvi'i koreh echad u'maftir echad. If Tisha B'Av falls out on Tuesday or Wednesday, then you have one reader and one person reading the Haftarah. That's the Tana Kama. Rabbi Yossi Omer, but Rabbi Yossi says, L'olam korin gimel maftir achad. No, it always has to be, no matter what day of the week Tisha B'Av falls out on, you have 3 readers and 1 maftir reader. So, two different cases, or 2 different opinions, but either way, we're not talking about having 4 aliyot, right? Neither the Tana Kama nor Rabbi Yossi suggest that you should have 4 aliyot on Tisha B'Av, which seems like we then can't trust Rav Ashi's opinion, and if we can't trust Rav Ashi's opinion, then maybe we don't really get that you would read 4 on a Ta'anit Tzibor, right? It doesn't seem like Rav Ashi's position, it doesn't seem like his interpretation of the Mishnah matches with this Breita, so we're ready to reject Rav Ashi. The Elakash is the Haklal. But if we do reject what Rav Ashi said, then we still have this problem of Zeh HaKlal. What is it doing? Lo la'atuye rosh chodesh u'moed. No, it's not coming to include. It's not coming to include the fast days. It's rather coming to include Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed. The Zeh HaKlal doesn't tell you anything about Ta'anit Tzibor. It tells you that Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed require 4. But there's a problem with that. Habehedjekat Tanila. But that was taught to us explicitly. The Mishnah says, B'roshei Chodeshim u'Moed Korin Arba'ah. You don't need Zeh HaKlal to tell you that. The Mishnah explicitly says that. This idea that Zeh HaKlal should include something extra. So what is that something extra? Simana be'alma yahiv. Simana is like a sign, be'alma is just sort of stam or general, and yahiv is to give. So the Mishnah is just giving us a general sign, kind of like a mnemonic. So it's not actually including more days on which you have 4 readers, but it's giving you a different piece of information. So that you won't say, which otherwise you might have said, you won't say that Yom Tov and Chol Moed are the same. You won't say that they're identical, because in fact Chol Moed is different and has fewer readers. And we wouldn't want you to get Chol Moed and Yom Tov confused. Ela nakod hai klal b'yadcha. Rather, here's the rule, and this is the rule that the Zeh HaKlal is hinting to. Kol de tafele milta mechavre, tafele gavra. Anything which has more than its friend, or another thing more than its friend, has more people. So in other words, anytime a day has some kind of advantage over another day, that gives it an extra aliyah. Tafele gavra yetera. Therefore, how does this rule apply? Hilkach, therefore, Rosh Chodesh Moed Tika Korban Musaf Korin Arba'ah. And Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed, where there's a Korban Musaf, you have 4 readers. B'Yom Tov De'asur Be'asiyat Melacha Chamisha. And on Yom Tov, actual Chag, where there's an Isur of doing any Melacha, you have 5 readers. B'Yom HaKippurim De'anush Karet Shisha. Yom HaKippurim, where there's a punishment of Karet, meaning if you violate the holiday, there's a punishment of karet. You have 6 readers. Shabbat de'ika isur skila shiva, and on Shabbat, which has an isur of skila, you have 7 readers. So each of these additional aspects of the day is seen as sort of an advantage, and that's why you add 1 reader for each one of these advantages, and that's how you go up in the number of readers. So it seems Ta'anit Tzibor has only 3 readers. And the Zeh HaKlal in the Mishnah doesn't come to add any additional cases. Rather, it's coming to hint to you about this general klal over here, that anytime one day has an advantage over another, it gets an additional reader. And of course, you have to know what those specific advantages are. Okay, we'll stop here.